Hey everyone, Dobie and I just want to make sure before we dive in that we give you guys a trigger warning about what we're going to be talking about. We'll be talking about stress, anxiety, depression, and suicide. We know this can be a sensitive topic and don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable. If you want to continue to listen but don't feel comfortable enough to listen to the beginning, you can skip to the 20-minute segment mark where we talk about our top 5 celebrities each and ask you guys the question of the pod. Thank you and get ready to listen.
This is the Just My Type podcast.
Here we go. Hello, around the block and around the world. This is the Just My Type podcast, where we discuss, debate, and deliberate all things diabetes. Representing type 2, my name is Dobie Maxwell. Representing type 1, the vivacious, the effervescent, the always in the know, Sami Parker. We'll get to Sami in seconds. But first, this episode of the Just My Type podcast is sponsored by the Diabetes app, a free social community app that brings together both type 1 and type 2 diabetics, plus their supporters find community, resources, and Sami and I on the Diabetes app. Hello, Sami.
Hey Dobie, how are you?
It's always fun to do this. You know, we're not that far along into our journey here, but it's just, I look forward to these episodes. I think we're developing not only a groove, but listeners too. So the first thing we usually do is to check your blood sugar.
Yes.
How is it and how are you feeling? Because how Sami goes is how the show goes.
So I'm feeling good this morning. My blood sugar is 141 with an arrow straight up, which is, I don't know. It could go one of two ways. It could plateau or we could just, sky high a little bit. But I'm feeling good and I just ate. So I feel revived and ready to go.
That is excellent. I haven't eaten. I haven't exercised. I've had a personal issue. A friend of mine has got us an illness. So it's one of those, and it's frazzled. That's just how life goes. Sometimes you're frazzled. Sometimes it all works out. And I have a prediction. Every comedy show I've ever done when I've been frazzled has always been great. So I think we're going to have a fantastic episode today.
Yes.
And I know we are going to, because we're going to get a little deep. We're going to get a little dark. And dark chocolate is good too. And it's more healthy for you. I've been in radio a long time. And whenever I would talk about dark subjects, my bosses would always say, what are you talking about that for? People don't want to hear that. And I disagree, because when I have talked about it on real radio, people call me up and they say, oh, I'm so glad you discussed it because it's been quiet and pushed under the rug. And I'm glad it's coming out in the open. So today's topic on our episode is mental health and diabetes.
That's a big one.
Woodwork squeaks, out come the freaks is an old saying, but there is no stigma in mental illness, in watching your mental health, in being medicated.
Yes.
So we have our pod squad, Elizabeth, our producer, gave us a slogan. What was her slogan?
There's no shame in the medicine game by Pete Davidson.
There is no shame in the medicine game. Thank you, Elizabeth. And there really isn't. We're going to take total credit for it because I don't think he's diabetic. He'll never listen. Maybe his fans will. But seriously, on a serious note, that is a very big thing. Depression for me as a creative person, quote unquote, it's very common. I don't know if you believe in astrology. Sami, do you believe in astrology?
I hate to say this, but whenever it's in my favor, I believe in it. And if it's not in my favor, I'm like, this is so lame.
You read your horoscope, you go to a Chinese restaurant. Oh, on the year of the skunk.
Yes,
that means we're going to have good luck.
Or I read my fortune and I'm like, yes, best fortune ever. And if I open my fortune cookie and it's not a good fortune, I'm like, this thing sucks.
I don't believe in it. I don't know if I believe in it, to be honest with you, but I fit all the prototypes of a creative person. Mm-hmm. I'm a Pisces. I am left-handed. I came from a horrible background. It's just I was tailor-made to be in the entertainment business. Whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, it is. And I've suffered from depression my entire life. And sometimes I can feel it. I look at it as a worm in an apple, and the apple is always revolving. Yeah. And eventually, no matter how good I feel, that wormy side of the apple is going to come back around again.
Yes.
I know it is that way. It's a funk. I get so bad with it sometimes, I don't want to get out of bed. I want to lay there in the fetal position and suck my thumb until the ocean drowns me. It's that bad.
Yeah.
I have been suicidal.
Wow.
I have had situations where I'm 1,000 miles from home and I have no one to talk to, nowhere to go. And I just made 500 people laugh as hard as they can laugh.
Yeah.
And I'm back in my hotel room by myself, wondering, contemplating life.
And I think that's the scariest thing about depression, because I actually, unfortunately, we lost a girl from my high school last week. She was up at Stanford and she took her own life. And she was like one of the top goalies out of like the state of California for soccer. But it was something that nobody understood because she was so very friendly and talkative and seemed like to have it all together. But people don't. That's the thing with depression. It's scary because you don't see it as an outside person. but then internally that other person is feeling so down and depressed.
I would say from personal experience, you don't see the good things that are happening. You see that big worm coming out of the apple.
Yeah.
It is unmanageable. It is, you don't want to be around anybody. And that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Is be by yourself.
Yeah.
But that's all you want.
Well, when do you feel like, I know we had the lowest of lows, but like what was the point that you felt like was your most depressing moment for you that you had to kind of bring yourself out of?
I will tell you exactly that without my life story in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I was abandoned. My dad was a biker. He rode with a motorcycle gang, and my mom abandoned our family. I have an older brother and older sister. I was 5 months old. And I just don't think you can rip an infant away from a mother,
No.
a physical bond at such an early age, and they're not being damaged. And Christmas is depressing. Everybody else is having a fun time with their family. And I was depressed and I was down and out. I had a couple of roommates. They were all out with their families. I was by myself in an apartment on Christmas Eve, and my roommate had a handgun. And I took that handgun and I put it to my head, and it just, my life said, it's not worth living. And I pulled the trigger. I squeezed the trigger, and the gun jammed, and the bullet did not go off. Obviously, if it did, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
When was that?
That was 1994.
So how old were you?
I was 31 at the time.
Wow.
There's a point where I hope you don't ever get to that place, but if somebody is listening to us and they have gotten to that place, we have to put the suicide hotline number here somewhere so people can get help.
Yeah.
Because I didn't call the suicide hotline. I didn't call anybody. I just thought life is not worth living. And to get to that point where you actually pull that trigger, I was shaking. I couldn't stand up. There was no one around. I sat there and I just cried for about 30 minutes, an hour. I don't know how long it was. And I sat down and I wrote my father a big 10-page long letter of why I was hurting and how I didn't care. And I couldn't find her mother. I would have written to her. And it was just very cathartic. And it started me on my way. I don't want to call it recovery, but to digging into why did I feel this way?
Yeah.
I'm a nice person. I think I deserve to have good things. And a lot of people, I'm an entertainer. People look at me and say, man, you make me laugh. You make me happy. Why am I not happy myself? And it got to the point where I have studied and learned. And when I got diagnosed with diabetes, I really think that since our bodies are such delicate machines, and some are more delicate than others, some are Ferraris and some are maybe, scooters, but there's moving parts in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And when the balance is off, and that could be blood and diabetes and blood sugar and all those things, I had no idea that there was a correlation between mental illness and diabetes. It was a revelation. I didn't discover. I didn't realize it.
Yeah, there's a really strong correlation there. And I think the first time I really realized that was honestly after I kind of found out like what diabetes burnout was. I was like, okay, I get it. This is diabetes burnout. And then I heard about people talking about diabetes and depression. And I was like, what? But then I realized like when you have high blood sugars, your chemical like mental brain state, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but it's totally off. Like it's a chemical imbalance.
Your functionality in general.
Yeah, like the functionality is like it's night and day to if your blood sugars are stable. And the unfortunate part about it is that it's almost like a catch-22 because you're stressing so much about your health that the stress about worrying about your health to make sure your health is good is actually biting you in the butt because you're stressing over it, which then is causing high blood sugars, which then is causing you to be in a depressive state. And then you're trying to manage your blood sugars again in a depressive state, which is then causing again high blood sugars. It's like a cycle, like a catch-22.
For listeners' sake, and for me too, please explain the difference between mental illness, you say, and diabetes burnout. Is there a difference?
I believe there's a difference. I think there's an overlap, but I definitely will say there's a difference. Diabetes burnout is like just you're having a day where you're just like, this is a tough day. I'm over it. I don't want to deal with it right now. And I'm trying to get myself out of it. And you have to come up with ways to try to like manage all your emotions and to try to pull yourself out of that rut. Mental health to me and like anxiety and depression, that is something that definitely, if you already have those tendencies, escalates with diabetes burnout. But I think that's something that we fail to like recognize even on its own. And we compare like diabetes burnout, you can have that every day for like even like 10 minutes a day.
Sure.
But mental health is something like needs to be addressed because when you're dealing with an illness, anybody, even if you don't have a history of mental illness, when you're dealing with something like that, it inevitably escalates and causes you to feel that way. And I think diabetes burnout is a short term, but mental health is a long term.
I would totally agree with that.
People get ashamed too of like medication and asking for help or being vulnerable about it and explaining like, I'm not okay right now. And I think there's a fine line there because in our world today too, we are so hyper aware of emotions and feelings, which is really, really great. But then I think there's a time where you can almost analyze something so much that you can like spiral your own thought process into a hole versus like being appreciative of the stuff you do have. But then there's like, that's why it's a fine line because I mean, I struggle with anxiety, like, and everybody probably, I have people all the time, they're like, everybody has anxiety, everybody has this, everybody has that. And that's very, very true. Everybody has a form of it. The difference is that for me, like, if I wasn't diabetic, I could probably manage my anxiety through other ways and it wouldn't be as escalated. But because I'm dealing with the diabetes, internally, I was so anxious about worrying about my blood sugars. Like, on the outside, I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I even would tell my parents, I was like, I'm fine. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm good. But internally and through like other autoimmune diseases, my body was like I was losing hair. I had like PCOS adrenal, which meant like my adrenal glands were just so stressed out. They were so over fatigued. I was having high blood sugars nonstop. I was insulin resistant, like all this different stuff. And it finally, honestly, was during COVID that I was like, okay, I just had like a meltdown where I was just like, I'm not okay. Like, I was like, I'm not okay. I was like balancing a bunch of different things and I didn't know how to like channel my energy into one because I was so worried about so many different things that I just wanted to have like a breakdown.
Now, were you able to get treatment during COVID? I think the whole world was locked down for so long that just warped everybody.
Yeah.
That was just off the charts. This is not normal. We don't know how to react to it.
So what was funny is I was really against going on medication for a while, like an anti-anxiety. And I was like, I'm not going on an anti-anxiety. Like, what? Because I knew girls in high school that were on it for other reasons. But I think because, like I said earlier, sometimes America's first resort sometimes is to just, here's a prescription. Here's this. Just take this. When, like, in all reality, 30, 40 years ago, if you were stressed out or having a bad day, it was just like, okay, learn how to deal with it. Like, learn how to live life. Like, you got to manage it. Either you need to meditate, you have to go for a walk. Like,
toughen up, kid.
Exactly.
You're having problems. We all have. I was raised by my grandparents who lived through the Depression. We ate dirt. We walked up hills in the blood snowstorm for 6 months. So I think there's been two extremes. Their extreme was don't help anybody.
Yes.
This extreme is, get a pill for it.
Everything right now. Like anybody I talk to, it'll be like, I even have certain people I know that they're on medication and I'm like, but why are they like, in my head I'm thinking, why are they on medication? And I'm like, this is so interesting because it's nothing significantly that they're like the situation they're saying they're dealing with. I'm like, it's not like that significant, which sounds terrible, but I'm thinking it's not like it's an illness or something that I'm like, oh,
sure.
So I think that's where it bothers me at first because I was like, I don't want to take a medication. I feel like they just hand that out. Well, it turns out I started just to try it, a very low dose of like a sertraline. Like I'm on Zoloft and I take like the smallest, technically I'm on half of one dose. Mm-hmm. And I tried it and my therapist was actually just like, you won't even notice it on the outside. Your body internally won't be as stressed about dealing with diabetes and school right now and worried about life and all that stuff. Like it'll just kind of like take that mini edge off internally. And so I started on the 25 and I increased it a little, but honestly, the increase was almost like where I was like, okay, now I don't feel like I have my same feistiness. And I could feel it kind of change certain things. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to be on the lowest possible dose. But for me, it's been like great because just those like extra couple emotional feelings of like, oh my gosh, I just can't do this. And I'm going to have a freak out and just start crying, which were happening a lot because I just didn't know how the diabetes 24/7 and like finger pricking 24/7 and taking my shot and thinking about it nonstop. And it's still there. It didn't go away, but the medication has helped to like, okay, just like that little edge that I just needed to, because I couldn't even get through a day without feeling like super stressed out.
Do you think people around you notice the change with you with the medication?
No, unless I tell them, like my best friends will know and be like, not even that they can tell. They're like, you don't seem any different. You just seem like you wouldn't have as like, if your numbers are high, you're just like, well, they're high today. I'm going to take some insulin and be it. But before I would I was so focused on perfection, but nobody else would be able to tell.
Now it's funny that you said I had a radio partner and we were in Chicago, the biggest huge market.
Mhm.
And he suffered from anxiety as well. And I suffered from depression. And I think it's the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. You can't just rope them all into one category.
No,
Your
yeah.
symptoms of depression, like you said, wanted to be perfection, and exactly what you guys are very much into. And to me, I just want to ball up and not talk to anybody and go to sleep and never wake up.
Yeah.
It's a different feel. They both stink, both horrible, but different.
Do you have any form of treatment or anything that you go through too?
I saw a therapist for a while, and the therapist was really cool. And again, as an entertainer, self-employed, I had the 100% deductible insurance plan. So I had a guy that was basically starting out, and it was in basically a thrifty nickel shopper newsletter. I'm starting out my, therapy business. So I think it was $20 in a coupon. And the guy was very young, but very good. And he said, I could put you on medication, prescribe it, but it might take several before one kicks in for you. And I didn't want to do that because it could take, 8 weeks of a cycle.
Yeah.
And he said, you might want to consider exercising and better diet.
Yeah.
And this is before I was diagnosed with diabetes. And I thank him every day for that, because that's exactly what I did. And I felt significant improvement.
Yeah.
So now when I get in those funks, I force myself to walk twice as far, to eat better, to drink more water. And maybe it's bipolar, which is also another scary word, because diabetes was scary when I was diagnosed with that.
Yeah.
I know after the wormy side of the apple goes away, and it always does, that I'm going to have a creative surge. I'm going to be on the top of my game. I'm going to have my best comedy shows. And that keeps me from putting the bullet in my mouth again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I feel bad now, but I know it might be 3 days, might be 3 hours, might be 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And usually it's just a few days. Like you said, maybe burnout can last just a few minutes or a day. But it's usually about 3 days, 4 days, maybe around there, maybe a week.
Yeah.
And then it starts to come out again.
And I think there's ways too, like with especially, exercise and whatnot. That's why, like for me at first, I was so reluctant on the anti-anxiety. But I think too, that's something that the difference honestly is like, because type 1 is like a 24/7, as in like you have to think about what insulin you're taking or the injection or the amount of units. Like it's so much of a 24/7. Whereas type 2, I feel like it's kind of like such an overwhelming thought of like what can happen. And you have to kind of be basically overall have to be healthy 24/7. Whereas like type 1, you can kind of like mess up and eat something because you can just take insulin. Whereas type 2, it's more like you have to be steady and consistent, which I think is where probably the depression can come in, because it's just so like weight bearing.
It's totally true. We're not doctors. We don't claim to be doctors, but this kind of open discussion, Sami, is awesome, because people a lot of times don't have a place to go. And one of the reasons we created this podcast was we wanted to have community.
Yes.
To discuss, to debate, to deliberate, everything. So if you have any comments, please get in touch with us. We're going to take a quick break right now. We're just scratching the surface on this. We'll do other episodes on this at all, but thank you for going down in the abyss with me, because that's not a pleasant place to be. But if nobody talks about it.
No, I know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are learning from you right now. That's a very serious situation.
I didn't know your friend. I never met her, but it hurts my heart to hear that she took her life at such a young age.
Yeah, it's I think it's like tough to think about, because I had her in all my classes in high school, and I haven't talked to her since high school, but it's just like hard because you envision it and are like, what was so traumatic that was like causing those feelings,
Think of her parents, think of her siblings, think of her friends around you. We're here to help. We'll be right back to the important messages. We are Just My Type Podcast. Thanks for listening. The Diabetes app is an online community platform that was created to help people living with diabetes find support and information in one spot.
And on the Diabetes app, you can join groups and connect with other people all over the world who are also living with diabetes. I mean, for me, whenever I have a bad day, I find myself scrolling through the mental wellness group just to reassure myself that I'm not alone.
The Diabetes app has a resource section where you can find articles, recipes, tips, and tricks for managing your diabetes. Download the Diabetes app today and connect with us right on the app.
DiaStrong is an online telehealth platform that connects you to medical and holistic professionals to help you manage your diabetes. Find registered dietitians, nutritionists, certified diabetes educators, and more without the hassle of having to go into a doctor's office.
Wait. You mean a lazy bum like me can have appointments right from my computer? Sign me up.
That's right, Dobie. And this week, our listeners can use promo code JMT25 for 25% off their first visit.
Yeah, don't try to cheat and go to JMT26, because you're not going to get 26. It's 25. Go to www.diastronghealth.com. That's www.diastronghealth.com. We're back. We're so glad that you joined us. My name is Dobie Maxwell. My co-host is with the mostest, Sammy Parker. Extra vivacious today. I really appreciate. We went down to the core today, and I think we should mention this. These were pretty deep topics. If you or anybody you know you suspect of having suicidal tendencies, that's a really tough word. Just Google suicide prevention. It's everywhere. My grandpa always told me as a kid, live your life to the best because it's short, but you're going to be dead for a long time. So live your life and don't take it early. No reason to do that.
Yes, there's a National Suicide Lifeline prevention number pretty much for every country, so you can just look that up on Google.
And we're thankful to have listeners in every country. So let's turn the tables and have something happy. People always, they like encounters with celebrities. And what we did, Sammy and I decided to come up with a list of celebrities with diabetes. So you're in the club if you're listening, hopefully watch. And we are too. So who are some famous people that also shared? And I know we're at different generations, so we're going to come up with different names. Well, I'll let you go for ladies first.
All right.
What was your first one?
Hopefully I'm not stealing one of yours. I found this one very interesting. Elvis Presley.
Elvis had diabetes?
Yes, they found out after he had passed away that he had suffered from diabetes.
So he was undiagnosed?
Uh-huh.
He was only 150 pounds overweight, and he drank gravy and ate, no, surprise.
I know.
I think Elvis had a lot of other issues besides diabetes, but that's very interesting.
But I found that one really shocking. I was like, what?
And I find that not shocking at all, to be honest with you, but that's okay. Because, I mean, you look at his lifestyle, not conducive to good health. I don't think Elvis had the treadmill. Okay, my number one was, that's the thing, we have a lot of listeners, and I'm delighted to have all over the board, all over the world. So I'm thinking, okay, who are the most famous people that everybody would know, even your generation? Now, Sammy, do you know who James Earl Jones is?
Yes.
Okay, he's the actor that played the voice of Darth Vader in Star Wars. He didn't play the actor. He played the voice of that actor. And that actor was very upset about it, but she's got the voice of God.
So funny.
I am your father, Luke. He was a type 2 diabetic.
Wow.
Now, can you imagine him, going into the doctor? I'm sick of these needles. Gives him the Vulcan death grip or whatever. No, that's Star Trek, Star Wars, Star Trek.
I think you should have played it.
I probably could have done that, yes. But I had no idea that he was a type 2. He's been suffering, or not suffering, but living with it for more than 20 years.
It's pretty crazy.
Who's number 2 on your list?
I have Nick Jonas, which I know everybody pretty much knows. You don't know who Nick Jonas is?
Oh, the Jonas Brothers.
Yes, okay. Yeah. I was like, Dobie, we're going to have a problem here.
I did know Jonas Brothers, but I mean, there's Smothers Brothers who you don't know. They're comedians. So depending on who's listening to this, they're going to know the Smothers Brothers or the Jonas Brothers. There's only 2 Smothers Brothers. There's a lot of Jonas Brothers, right?
There's 3, and this one's the youngest one, and he has type 1 diabetes.
And all the girls love him anyway.
Yes, he's like the diabetes crush of mine. I'm like,
I'll make you a salad, Nick. I'll break the rest of them cookies.
Yeah.
Well, I went music too with my number 2, and I'm not sure if you heard of this person. I don't think our pod squad leader Elizabeth or Rosa, Bret Michaels. You know who that is?
Nope. I've heard the name, but maybe like in passing,
Yeah, Elizabeth says no clue. It's so funny to me because he's probably my age, and all the chickies liked him. He was in a band called Poison, and he's got hair very much like yours, the hair band era in the 80s, before you were born.
Yeah.
There's all these bands that basically look the same, and they were so Bret Michaels, they thought he was on drugs, but it turns out he had type 1 diabetes, and his mood swings and all those things of being a temperamental artist. And I would like to track him down and talk to him because I think he's very intelligent, and I heard him interviewed many times, and he really brings a lot to the table. So we'll go after him, but yeah, he's number 2 on my list.
Okay. My third one is Derek Taylor.
No clue.
He is in the show Baby Daddy.
No clue.
Yes, which was like a sitcom.
Okay.
And then he's also been in a couple movies, but he's type 1 as well.
Okay.
I mean, I think he's a big celebrity.
I think there's 8 billion people in the world. Even the biggest celebrities, 99% of the people.
He's not
but
big.
I'm saying 99% of the people don't know who they are anyway. So who's a celebrity to some people are not. We have people listening all over the world.
Very true.
I went to the Olympics in 1996 in Atlanta, and it was funny to me. I was sitting next to some British people. They're not going to come to where I could see them anyone time. And they're showing people who they are. And it's like, okay, that was Muhammad Ali. When he lit that's a big famous thing. He lit the torch.
Yeah.
And Tom Brokaw came on, and he's a big, news anchor in the States. And who is that? I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Tom Brokaw. So it's just funny to me that they didn't know what it is. So anyway.
I just thought of one.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, wait. No, sorry. Go yours first.
No, go ahead. What'd you think of? Go ahead.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise is diabetic?
Type 2.
I had no idea.
Yep.
Now, he's pretty famous. I would say a lot of his movies are pretty much all over the world. Don't you think? He's famous.
Yeah, but isn't that one crazy? I remember that coming out honestly 6 years ago now. And I was like, whoa.
I had no idea about that. I know who he is, but I didn't know he had diabetes. Here's one you're probably not going to know, but you'll know what he did. Ray Kroc.
No, but tell me what he did.
He popularized McDonald's. And he was a
Ray
Kroc out of Chicago. There was somebody in San Bernardino, California, two brothers called the McDonald's brothers, and they sold cheap hamburgers and shakes and sodas. And he was selling mix masters, to make milkshakes. And they were buying 8 of them and using them up. And he said, who could be selling that many milkshakes? And he saw the operation. And he said, I want to franchise this all over the world. They said, well, we don't want to do that. We just want to stay here, and we got enough money, and we got a big house. We have a good life. So Ray Kroc started McDonald's. He was a type 2 as well. And he was just notoriously a ruthless businessman. There's a movie about him starring Michael Keaton. So I'm not saying he was necessarily a great person, but he sure had massive success. I didn't know he had type 2 diabetes.
Wow, that's shocking. I mean, I guess it's not shocking if he's over there loving Mickey D's, but...
No, I don't think he ever ate it. He ate probably steak and lobster every day because he was a million billionaire. But he sold a lot of hamburgers. Who's your number 4?
I have Jennifer Stone, who is from...
The Jennifer Stone?
You know who that is?
I have no idea who that is.
I was like, if you're from my generation and you watched Wizards of Waverly Place,
I'm not.
And you would know Harper.
Oh, I knew Harper. I never trusted her.
And Harper,
I always thought she was diabetic.
Harper,
I don't like her.
Is great. Harper is the friend of Alex Russo. Yes.
Diabetic? Type 1 or type 2?
Yeah, but she's great. She's type 1.
Okay, very good. Here's one I know you haven't heard of. Ron Santo. I know your dad's name is Ron.
I don't know. That last name sounds familiar.
Ron Santo was a baseball player for the Chicago Cubs. He was also a broadcaster. And he lost his legs from diabetes.
See, that right there, that's my fear.
And he always talked about juvenile diabetes and did fundraisers for that. And he was a legend in Chicago. He was just absolutely huge. Man, he was a type 1.
Dang. Well, my last one is Halle Berry.
Okay.
She's type 1. You know Halle Berry.
I know who that is. Yeah, she's a very beautiful lady. I've heard stories where she's not the easiest to get along with.
Oh.
She's had some issues from being a diva. I never met her. I'm not trying to spread rumors, but it's well documented.
Rumor has it she's
not the easiest person to get along with. But
Halle Berry, if you ever listen, we hope that you prove us wrong.
We'll put you on. You can be mean to us. At least you'll be on our show. My final one. I think everybody knows who this. He's pretty popular. Tom Hanks.
Yes.
You got to know who Tom Hanks is, right?
Yes.
Been a lot of what do you think his most famous movie is?
I don't know.
I think it's Forrest Gump. You ever see Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody does a Forrest Gump impression. Jenny, I don't think I'm diabetic, Jenny.
Why am I forgetting what he looks like?
Well,
yes. Okay, no. You got me a little nervous for a second. I was thinking, oh my gosh, did I mean to say Tom Hanks instead of Tom Cruise? But no, I was right. It's Tom Cruise.
Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise.
I didn't know Tom Hanks.
Tom Thumb. All the Toms with diabetes.
Well, I have one. I have a celebrity to shout out and mention. Anna Fernstadt, I hope that's how you pronounce it, but she's an Olympian and she's type 1. And if you're listening, we appreciate it. She's awesome though. And she was actually competed in these Olympics. Very famous. We appreciate her. Also, if you're a fan of the show Mike and Molly, that's a sitcom that was on for many years. Billy Gardell, who played Mike, not Molly, is a very good friend of mine. He is a friend of the show, and he actually did an episode with us. He's fantastic, very open. He had surgery to lose weight to deal with his type 2 diabetes. So thanks, Billy, and thanks to everybody that participates. Yes. Sami, every episode we do, the time flies, and we're done with another one. This was fun. I know. It kind of makes me sad. I'm like, when's the next one? We started deep again, but we ended happy. Celebrities are always happy to talk about. But please, if you're having any issues with depression, mental health, there's no shame in it. Your car breaks, you take your car to get fixed. Your body breaks, you go to the doctor to fix it. Your mind is sick. Yeah, you need help. Exactly. That's all. So we want to ask you guys a question of the pod, and that is, who is your diabetes celebrity crush or anybody that you want to meet that has diabetes and you look up to them? Do you have one, Sami? Mine's very cliche. You like the Nick Jonas thing? You said you like Nick Jonas. It's Nick Jonas. That's him out of the bag? Yes, it is. It's Nick Jonas. Nick Jonas, I hope I get to meet you one day. Well, you know what? You have enough going for you. That might be a possibility. Now, I have no chance to meet Halle Berry, but she's a very beautiful lady, so I went a different direction. I said, I want to meet her stunt double, because you know what I'm saying? Okay. Somebody that takes the place in the movies that nobody knows who she is. She's probably going to be pretty if she looks like Halle Berry, and if she's diabetic, we going out, baby. McDonald's, we're having a salad, but we're going out. All right, we love that. So please rate, review, and subscribe. Share your answer to the question of the pod, which is, who is your diabetes celebrity crush? And you can find us on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at JustMyTypePod _, Facebook, JustMyTypePod, and you can hashtag us at JustMyType pod. Oh, that was a lot on my tongue, but I got it all out.
We love you. We appreciate you.
Yes.
And Sammy, put the cherry on the sundae and we're off.
Say la vie, baby.
This is the Just My Type podcast.